Okay, let's dive right in. Most organizations today, well, they're operating under a huge misunderstanding of what it actually means to be compliant. They think that having all the right documents, the policies, the frameworks, the checklists, is enough. But we're about to see why that's just not the case.
And this, right here, this gets to the absolute heart of it. Real governance isn't about the paperwork that describes how your systems should work. It's all about the actual operational control you have over how they do work, day in and day out. Trust comes from systems that work, not from documents that just sit on a shelf.
So, this leads us to a massive problem in the industry today, something we can call the compliance illusion. It's this dangerous gap between what our documents say is happening and what's really happening on the ground. You see, the core issue is fragmentation. In most companies, GRC isn't one unified system. No, it's a scattered mess of disconnected parts, which makes real oversight, well, nearly impossible. And what's really interesting here is how this just visualizes the chaos, right? You've got policies living in one system, frameworks in a completely different one, evidence you need for audits is spread across dozens of tools, and critically, the controls themselves, a lot of the time, they have no clear owner. So audits just become these frantic, one-time fire drills instead of a smooth, continuous process. And all this chaos forces GRC professionals onto this treadmill of pure reaction. Instead of proactively managing risk, their days are just spent playing catch-up, lurching from one crisis to the next. They're always putting out fires instead of actually fireproofing the system. Let's break that cycle down, because it's painful. It all starts with a mad dash to prep for an audit. Then comes that awful process of chasing down evidence from 10 different teams and systems. By the time you find the gaps, it's way too late in the game. And risk? That often only gets managed after something has already gone wrong. Sound familiar? And all of that effort, all that chasing and fixing, it all ends in a really dangerous illusion. You have piles of documents that say you're compliant, but in the real world, you lack any real operational control over your environment. It's the look of security without the substance. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. The world has changed. Risks evolve every single day. Data moves instantly, and our approach to governance absolutely must evolve with it. This means we need a fundamental shift in how we think. This slide nails the paradigm shift we need. We've got to move away from those periodic, point-in-time audits and embrace continuous governance. We need to shift our focus from static documents to live controls. The whole goal is to graduate from simple checklists to dynamic systems, making sure our fancy frameworks actually reflect our operational reality. So, how in the world do we make this shift happen? The solution is to start thinking of governance not as a bunch of tasks to check off, but as a foundational operating system for the entire organization. And this is where platforms that are designed as a control operating system really come into play. Take a tool like K-Control, for example. Its whole philosophy isn't just about generating reports. It's about creating a system to actively manage the very fabric of your governance. What does that actually mean in practice? Well, it means you can finally connect all the dots. You can understand which controls actually apply to your business, you can immediately see what's missing, and you can map those controls directly to specific risks. This is all about connecting those big compliance frameworks to your daily operations and linking evidence directly to reality. It's about creating a state of continuous readiness. And this is the absolute core of this new approach. Instead of starting with some big framework document and trying to hunt down evidence for it, you start with the living, breathing controls that run your business, and then map them back to any framework you need. It flips the whole process on its head. And inside this kind of system, controls aren't just lines in a spreadsheet. They become managed assets with their own life cycle. They're clearly defined, they're assigned an owner who's actually accountable. They're mapped to risks and frameworks, and most importantly, they are continuously monitored and reviewed, not just once a year when the auditors show up. The outcome of all this is huge. You finally break free from that reactive cycle we talked about. Your GRC program totally transforms from being reactive to proactive, from something theoretical that just lives in spreadsheets to something that is truly operational and alive in your organization. Now, I know this all sounds great in theory, but let's look at the real-world impact. What happens when an organization actually makes this shift? The numbers are pretty incredible. So let's see what happens when this philosophy is actually put into practice. For one multinational bank that adopted this approach, the results were just staggering. They saw a 94% reduction in manual review work. I mean, just think of the thousands of hours that frees up for GRC teams to focus on managing real risk instead of pushing paper. And speed is absolutely critical, right? That same bank, they were able to produce regulatory reports 76% faster. When regulators come knocking, that kind of efficiency isn't a nice to have, it's a necessity. And here's the bottom line. This isn't just about better security, it is about better business. The operational efficiencies from this shift led to a $22 million annual reduction in compliance costs. That is the power of turning governance into an operational system. Ultimately, this whole approach is built for the people who are actually in the trenches. The GRC pros who are serious about protecting their organization's trust, not just putting on a show for the auditors. It's for the doers, not the box checkers. And that brings us full circle. Trust is the ultimate prize of any governance program. And you don't earn it by having a perfect policy document. No, you earn it day in and day out by having systems that are controlled, monitored, and proven to work exactly like they're supposed to. This chart just perfectly sums up the whole evolution. We are moving from a world of paperwork to a world of actual practice, from one-time audits to continuous assurance. And ultimately, this elevates the entire function, from just being about compliance to being about the engineering of trust itself. So, I'll leave you with this one question to think about for your own organization. Is the trust that your customers and your partners place in you built on a foundation of paperwork, or is it built on the proven daily practice of systems that are truly, genuinely under control?